Is she here? I'm going to hit pause. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday on a Thursday. My name is Nikki Bradenberg, and I'm here today with our guest teacher, Tracy Piltz. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Nikki.
We are talking about coding today. These slides are interactive and available to you if you follow this link, bit.ly/Tech Talk Tuesday 1020. And that is this exact slide deck. We've got links placed in there throughout, and you can click on those and follow along as we're sharing here. 10 reasons to teach coding. That's just a fun little graphic to give you some context for why we think this is important. We probably should have put that slide in a different order. We'll introduce ourselves here and maybe go back to that last one. I'm Nikki and I work for Montana PBS. I'm the Director of Education and I'm going on 4 years here. Prior to this, I taught in elementary school and did most of my teaching in the kindergarten and first grade classroom in a rural school just east of Bozeman. And coding became one of those things that I tried at one time on a whim and loved it so much that I just adopted it to be a regular practice. I think all kids should code. I think grown-ups should code. I think it's just such a great thing to do to meet so many awesome learning outcomes in all content areas. Tracy, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Tracy Piltz. I am a tech integration specialist in Billings. My classroom teaching experience before taking this position was teaching kindergarten. And just like Nikki, I didn't really know much about coding or computer science, but I kept hearing about it and finally decided that it was something I needed to just try with my kindergartners, and really was surprised at how some of them really took to it. Just all of the different aspects that they explore when they're the creativity and the problem solving and the critical thinking, just how it opened up so many of those doors for them. And so, yeah, just like Nikki, I sort of happened upon it, but gosh, I now really just feel so strongly that all of our students, particularly our young students, should have that opportunity to learn how to code. And just in perfect timing, our friend Carrie is joining us as well. Carrie, thanks for hopping in. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi. Apologies for being late. I'm Carrie Wardle, and I am the education manager. I work at Idaho Public Television, so I'm excited to be here with you guys today.
We just got started, Carrie, so you are not late. I'm going to go back just as a reminder. This is the link for this slide deck, Tech Talk Tuesday 1020. And so this is where you'll get all these slides. This infographic made by Sylvia Duckworth is just a nice summary of coding and why we should do it. And I think a lot of teachers come to hear about it and think of it as kind of just one of those buzzwords and don't know why it has so much value. And this little image does a nice job of giving you some ideas for all the great things it does. But the first best one is that one in the middle. Coding is fun. So what is coding and why is it important, Carrie?
Awesome, thank you. If you can go to the next slide, I mean, sort of the rudimentary, definition really of coding is that creating a sequence of instructions that tell a computer or PlayStation or anything that, uses technology what to do. So that's really the kind of, down and dirty. I usually tell teachers and tell students, I equate it to playing a video game because that's what kids know. And so I let them know that the characters in the video game only react based on what we tell them to do, and that somebody had to code that. So that's what coding, the definition of coding is. The why coding, you just saw that thing from Sylvia Duckworth, but in addition to all of those, and I just can't stress enough how coding is more than just computer programming, and the things that it teaches kids is amazing. From perseverance and problem solving. I read a recent article in a business magazine that they had done a survey of employers, and they said that the top 3 skills that they're looking for from employees is problem solving, critical thinking, and perseverance, which is interesting. It wasn't college experience necessarily. It wasn't like they said we can teach all of those things, but perseverance, critical thinking, and problem solving are the 3 things that they really want. And coding is a perfect way to really start teaching kids as young as, preschool and kindergarten, those skills to persevere and to problem solve. But it's also another form of literacy now. And, we are just, our whole world is surrounded by technology, and kids, especially today, they don't know a world without it. And so being literate and able to at least understand and kind of speak the language of computers really helps them to be able to really navigate the world today. And one of my favorite TED Talks by, I believe her name is Milena Beers, she says that, we teach all kids to write, not with the expectation that they will become journalists or authors, and we don't teach kids to code with the expectation that they're all going to grow up and become computer programmers and coders. But that there's value in the process of both of those things. There's value in writing and in the process of writing, and writing is a skill that you need, even if you're not an author or a journalist. You still need to be able to write, and we're getting to a point in the world where coding is the same way. If you'll skip to the next slide, and I think you might have to click on every individual thing because I didn't change it, sorry. But the other sort of really telling things was a recent study from, well, as recent as I could find was 2015, looked at the job market. And you can see some pretty, I think, powerful statistics here that, 20% of the jobs which paid $15 per hour or higher valued coding in their respondents. If you want to click again. And then again, you guys can read, but we're seeing a growth of, and this was 2015. So I would imagine that these percentages and numbers have increased. Jobs that require coding skills pay an average of $22,000 a year more than jobs that don't. And then this is another one. Half of the jobs in the upper income quartile are in occupations that require coding. I thought that was such an interesting statistic. And then the other one that really stuck out to me from this study was that half of the programming jobs are not in tech industries anymore. And I think that when we think of coding, we think of tech, but actually the top 3 that are among those now are finance, manufacturing, and healthcare. And so because every company uses computers, and so every company needs somebody who can code and instruct those computers. So those are just sort of the, the nitty gritty. I could go on and on about the reasons for why coding, but I just think the ability to code and to understand computers just leads to so many other really amazing skills, and is obviously, as you can see, a really highly sought out job skill now. And so if we can teach our kids to code, especially at school where, some of the kids I know may not have the opportunity to do that at home. So if we can expose them to it at school, we just help put them that much farther ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even working for public media, we have people on staff that are coders.
Yep.
We have 2 on staff, and we had a student that was interning for us recently that was an amazing coder, and he created some really cool things for our website, custom sort of widgets and things like that we miss him.
Yeah.
He made some cool stuff. So I have a fun, how do you get started coding story. And I think that's where a lot of teachers are. When I talk to teachers about coding, it's not hard to bring them on board and convince them of the value, but it is hard to see where this fits. Teachers have so many things to teach throughout the day, so many requirements. One more thing isn't going to work. We need to talk about how this fits into what we're already doing. My coding story is I was teaching kindergarten and first grade in a rural school in just east of Bozeman. I was at that point in my career where I really wanted to try new things. And we had a class set of iPads that we had just gotten through some grant funding. And so we were looking for all kinds of new ways to use those iPads. I'd seen on Twitter that teachers, the hashtag Kinders Can Code was kind of all over the place, and teachers were talking about coding. And I just wanted to check it out. And so I reached out to our technology and librarian at the school and asked him if he would help, because in his former life he had been a computer programmer, and I was sure that I needed a computer programmer to teach my kids how to code. That if my kids were going to code, it needed to be from somebody in the industry that could teach them how to do it. And through research, I found at that time, and this was probably, I don't know, 2014, 2015, the only program that was really out there for the younger students was Codeable. And it was brand new, just getting launched. It was free. It worked mostly on iPads, and that's what we had. And so that's what we tried. And we just set aside some time to try Codeable out. We started with some unplugged lessons. And the purpose of Codeable is, like any video game, it has a story. And it's these little fuzz balls that end up crashing on this planet. And this planet has really tall grass. And the only way that these fuzz balls can get around and navigate their way around this planet is to roll along these paths. Because the grass is so high, they can't see where the turns are. And so they rely on the student to use a series of arrows to give them commands so they can get through these mazes. And of course, just like any game like this, it starts out easy. The first few levels teach you how to play the game, and then it gets harder and harder as time goes on. And then there's instruction in there where we can teach them about being more efficient with their codes and fixing their bugs and all of that. We blocked out an hour of every week to just teach coding. And this is a picture from my actual classroom, and they could spread out all over the room and get their iPads out. And what we found is this became the most anticipated hour of the week. Coding time was so popular, and it leveled things because the kids didn't need to read to code. They needed to be able, using Codeable, they were using symbols and colors and patterns. They could work together, they could work by themselves. But the best part was new leaders emerged. Kids who were doing all right in school suddenly found this to be their thing. And I had one little guy that really struggled to be at school. He really would have rather been at home most days. Nothing we did really grabbed him or engaged him until we started coding, and he became the class coding expert. And he got the recognition from his peers for being that coding expert. And to this day, he's a 7th grader now, and he's coding robots, and he's building his own video games, and he's that techie kid that teachers are borrowing to fix their computers. And it's being pulled out of class all the time to be the techspert. And his mom credits that with, thank goodness you found coding for him, for that to be his thing, for that was the draw for him that got him to school and helped him connect with his peers and helped him feel connected with what he was doing. In the notes part of this slide, I have information about Codeable. Codeable is not free anymore. Parts of it are free. Like any tech company, they have to keep the lights on. So they have a subscription plan, and so I included it. They do have some options for those of us teaching or learning at home during COVID, so there are some options there. There's also a plan if just families want to subscribe to it monthly, and I think it's just $6.99 a month to subscribe to it. Codeable was popular in my house. My husband became obsessed with beating Codeable, and he took the iPad and sat on the couch and played Codeable until he beat Codeable and was like patting himself on the back. And I was like, I mean, that is like a 5th grade level that you just accomplished there. That was pretty top notch. But it's a great program, a great one for getting started, especially for the younger group. So Tracy, coding in the time of Corona.
Oh, coding in the time of Corona. First of all, I've heard Nikki tell that story, but I just love that story. I think it's so powerful. And I love that was with kindergartners. I've been really passionate lately about getting these opportunities for young learners because, here in Montana, we don't at this point have required computer science standards. We don't have required classes that our kids have to take. And I think when they have the option to take computer science classes, a lot of students aren't selecting that because they've never had any kind of exposure to coding or computer science. They don't know what it is, or they don't think they're any good at it because they've never tried it. And so I love, just that idea of at least giving them the opportunity to try. Every kid should have that opportunity when they're young to try and see if it's something that they have that aptitude for, or something that they want to pursue even more. So I love that. So on top of being a tech integration specialist here in my district in Billings, I've also had the great pleasure this year of teaching remote 1st grade. So right when school began, I found out that they needed somebody to fill a remote 1st grade teaching position. And so I've been doing that for the past several months. And so I have some experience with, teaching virtually in this time. And coding is such a perfect fit for these different learning situations that we find ourselves in the time of Corona, whether that be a hybrid learning situation or fully remote. There are lots of unplugged types of coding activities that Nikki's going to talk about a little bit more in a few minutes. But I know with my 1st graders being fully remote, so much of what we were doing was on a screen. We were Zooming, we were seesawing, we were doing all these things where we're in front of a screen. And so they're hungry for, they like workbooks because they're hungry for things that they can, touch and feel and write and do. And so unplugged coding where they can, take some materials from around their house or code their little sister to walk to the kitchen and open the fridge or something. Those types of unplugged activities are such a great fit for those students, just to give them something away from the screen to be practicing those different skills. And then also for those asynchronous learning times, Code.org is one that we'll talk a little bit more about too, but they have such a great, thorough lesson plan laid out for each one of their lessons. They include videos that are already created. And so it's really set up so well for asynchronous learning because as long as you teach your kids to move through the lesson kind of a bubble at a time and be sure that they're taking the time to watch those videos, there's really nothing that you as a teacher would necessarily need to prep. You could assign those lessons to them and make sure that they're looking at those videos, and they could be working through this really asynchronously. Other programs, Nikki mentioned Codeable, CodeSpark, a lot of the programs that I've used, and we'll share some links to more of those tools later. They're all adapting, as every tech tool is right now, for hybrid or remote learning. And so they have those options for learning at home that make it really easy for our kids to get connected and start coding from home. So really great asynchronous options. I know, again, with my 1st graders, they had a lot of time where we're synchronous together. They had specific tasks to do, but I was always looking at some of those more like can-do types of opportunities for them. What are some things that they could explore and investigate if they want to go a little bit deeper or be challenged? And so I think in Corona, in hybrid or remote learning times, I think that coding really presents itself as a perfect asynchronous sort of can-do challenge type of thing that you can have available to your students.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. So coding resources. So along the lines of, you know, where does this fit into what I do? And I think that's a big question that teachers have, and that is, coding can be language arts, coding can be math, coding can be STEM. Coding fits wherever you need it to fit. When I started, it was math, and I did it during our math time, and I inserted it into our math block on a Friday afternoon or something like that. And then as we did it whole group for a number of sessions so that I felt like everybody could do it independently. And then it became a math center. And as they moved around the room and they were focusing on different strategies, they could pick up coding and do that for 15 or 20 minutes a day. I also think some of those soft skills that we talk about needing to reinforce, coding also does that. So as Carrie mentioned before, that perseverance, that grit. In my classroom, we called it practice not quitting. And that was from a project my co-teacher was doing for his master's degree, was really trying to help kids build their stamina and to do things that were hard. And we talked them through, like, when you do things that are hard and you practice not giving up and you believe in yourself, you get to celebrate something big at the end. And so we would do all kinds of things, borrowing from the Daily 5 stamina practice, where we're going to code for 20 minutes now, and nobody's going to say the words "I can't do this." Like, nobody, like, those words aren't allowed during this time. And so I think if you want to focus on a content area, you can, and I think it easily fits into these standards, but it also fits into that just helping kids practice trying something new and struggling a little bit and working together or working on their own to find the process of the solutions for their own problem. These are some of the areas that, depending on the platform you use, that you could reach with coding. But basically, it's a matter of picking a platform and just going with it. I think I'm on the wrong screen here. I think we're doing, did I take Carrie's slide, or was I supposed to do this one? I think that doesn't matter. So a couple of places you could insert it into your day. A great place to start is one of the first weeks in December is Computer Science Awareness Week. And that's when we're promoting the Hour of Code. And so it's a challenge extended to all classrooms to have kids accumulate 60 minutes of coding. And you can go to code.org and go to Hour of Code, just Google Hour of Code, and there's a lot of different specific activities you can do with kids to give them that taste. And we just set a goal. Everybody's going to code for an hour. And then there are certificates you can print off and you can celebrate that. And that gives everybody a taste of what it is. It allows you to introduce it. And then from there, you can set it up as learning centers during any of your content areas. After that, we also used it for our Genius Hour projects. And so some kids that wanted to take it even further, when they had that time where they got to be self-directed and choose what they wanted to do, they opted to work on their coding project. And that's where things can get a little bit more elaborate, or they can just sit down on whatever platform you've taught them to use and just work through and challenge themselves to do something new. So there's a lot of places where it can fit. I think the other thing I would add to this is putting it in your lesson plan if you are remote learning or online learning, adding it to your weekly schedule and making that an option that kids can sign into whatever platform you're going to use and spend 20-30 minutes coding and building something with code. Have them snap a screenshot of whatever they do and put it in Seesaw or upload it to Google Classroom so you can see what they created. All right, now I think Tracy is going to share some resource. Tracy, do you want me to click on this and so you can kind of show them around the site, or What do you want to do?
Yeah, you could click on it.
Okay.
So we just wanted to share kind of some of our favorite tools. There are some slides later in this slide deck that really share a ton of, there's a lot of coding resources out there. And so there's slides that are going to share a ton of different resources by grade level, but we just kind of wanted to highlight some of our favorites. Code.org is one that I love. When I first started using coding or giving my students opportunities to code in our classroom, I feel like I was kind of dabbling in. I did a little Codable, and we did a little Daisy the dinosaur, and we did a little Scratch. We were just grabbing from so many different places, and the kids loved it. It was really fun, but I didn't feel like what I was doing was very cohesive. When I discovered code.org, what I really like is, number one, it's completely free. It's a totally free curriculum. It's a scaffolded curriculum, and so I can start at course A and know that that's, for my kindergartners, and I can work all the way up through those courses because they spiral. Even if your students haven't coded before, if they're in second grade, they should be able to start at course C and still have all of the supports and things in place to be able to be successful. So you can kind of look through here. When you get into it, there are so many resources. Sometimes it can be a lot to sort of navigate. So you can kind of, when you go to code.org, create your free teacher account. You'll look for courses. So depending on your grade level, you would kind of look through those different courses, and then you can just kind of click on and view the different lesson plans in there. They're incredibly thorough. Again, kind of like Nikki, I don't have a computer science background. And that's okay. They give you the vocabulary that you need. They'll tell you, these are the words that you need to do. Here's how you want to introduce this. And it really breaks it down so well, step by step, for you to be, as a teacher, successful. And then again, you can just sort of share these links and that kind of thing out with your students. So whether you're in the classroom or you're hybrid or you're remote, your students can work through these lessons really easily with supports from you as the teacher. So I think what I really love about this is, just that it's a really cohesive, comprehensive, scaffolded curriculum, where I know if I start at this particular lesson and work my way through, it's going to give my students in a sequence the things that they should know. They've built in digital citizenship types of things into all of the different grade levels. And so they're learning those skills as well. So I like using this as sort of that main curriculum piece, I guess, for coding and computer science, and then sort of supplementing it with some of these other amazing resources that we found. But I love how comprehensive this is, and particularly if I'm at a school where maybe, we're committing to doing this across grade levels. I like that we could all, I'm going to be in course A, they're going to be in course B. And again, we know that they're moving through a sequence. They're going to have those supports, those spirals. And again, they're committed to being completely 100% free. There's a lot of tools, and we get it. Like Nikki said, they have to pay the bills, but there's a lot of tools that we start using and they're free and it's awesome. And then all of a sudden we have to buy a subscription or something like that, which of course they need to do that. But at the same time, we don't always have the budget for that. So I love that they're also committed to being 100% free. You can use this. There's not an app, but you can use the website easily on an iPad from a browser or from a computer, Chromebook. So it works fantastic on whatever device that you have.
Cool. All right. Well, I think my slide was next. To see. Nope, Carrie's isn't it? Or yeah, Unplugged is next. So I'm actually gonna go back to that same thing. So Unplugged coding, I think we mentioned it a little bit before, is the idea of not needing to be on a computer, but teaching the fundamentals of coding and the process of giving commands in a sequence. And when I started Codable, I started with unplugged activities because it was important to me that the kids understood that what they were doing was coding. I didn't want them to think they were just playing a video game, because they can play a game from beginning to end. They would have fun and they would have no idea they were learning coding skill. So I made little unplugged activities that looked like the codable screen by just taping blue construction paper on poster boards so that they had similar mazes. And I bought little puff balls, and I printed out little arrows, and they sat with partners and laid out the arrows and then practiced moving their puff ball down the maze. And that was a way of them to just kind of understand, like, big picture what this is, and what it was going to look like when they got to the screen. That was before Code.org, when you could go and find these unplugged activities that are free. And again, here's a great thing to incorporate into your online teaching. It starts with a video that they can watch, and then takes them to one of these things and gives them a workspace and walks them through some of these activities that don't necessarily require oh my, you completed the puzzle, Tanu. And they just drag the block to the carpet or to the carpet. Just learning those kinds of activities. There's all kinds of, I think I'll go back to this one. There's all kinds of things that could be printed out and sent home, or the link shared and could be printed at home. A lot of it is paper pencil kinds of things. A lot of it looks like your map skills, or looking at a grid and looking at coordinates on a grid. So if you think about games like Battleship, that's all the same kind of fundamentals of coding. So we can reinforce computer science by giving kids these sort of unplugged learning experiences. And this is great for in buildings where maybe you're sharing devices or you don't have a full set of devices. You can still teach the concepts of coding without having devices. So in the slide deck right here, I put the link to the unplugged activities, and that's what this page is. And there's curriculum and a curriculum book, and then the actual lessons with a video and things that go along with it. So that's unplugged learning. Get back to my slides. And Carrie, I think we get to hear from you now. Do you want me to click on this?
Yes, please. So another really great resource, and especially for those younger kids, is PBS Kids Scratch Junior. And I know Tracy mentioned, she loved that Nikki was starting that in kindergarten. I am a big proponent of starting coding young. And, I often say, we don't start teaching kids math in 5th grade. We don't start teaching kids to read in 5th grade. There's a reason that we teach kids things at a young age. So PBS Kids Scratch Junior is a really great coding app designed. Now I'll tell you that it says for kids ages 5 to 8, but I have coded with this app with all the way up to 6th grade and had them be equally as engaged as kindergartners. So what I tell people is that it's a really great beginning coding app. And I don't think it matters what age. So if your kids have never coded before, your students, and they're in 5th grade, this is a really good place for them to start. But it's especially great for the littles because there's no reading required. So it is an app, which means it can be downloaded on any tablet. It's also available though on Chromebooks if the Chromebook is able to download the Google Play Store. Then you can download it through the Google Play Store and go through it that way. So not every Chromebook is able to do that. Most of the newer ones that are coming out are automatically coming with Google Play Store on them now. But if you have Chromebooks that are a little bit older, you may or may not be able to do this. So Google Play or the App Store are where you can get those. And then the great thing about this is that there's also lesson plans and resources for you to teach this in your classroom. So the website that we're on right now has these activities. They scaffold, and I really love that about them. So if you start at the beginning, they really only begin begin by teaching the kids a few blocks, and then they add more as you go through, so that kind of by the end of the lesson plans, you really have taught them all of the blocks and what they do. Yeah, if you want to click on that tree problem, they're all set up very similar. They just have the overview, the goals, the keywords, which I love. Any of them that are underlined, if you just mouse over those, it gives you the definition in case you're unsure of it. Tells you the materials that you're going to need. And I really love that with the materials, you'll see that there's a design handout. This is probably one of my favorite things, because this allows the kids to plan ahead of time. And I know that as a former 5th grade teacher myself, the kids hated planning anything. They hated a rough draft of writing. They hated they just wanted to jump in and do it, right? And so this is a really good activity for them to be able to jump in and plan ahead. And then there's also, if you print it double-sided, there's also a reflection piece on that. So I really love that. And then there's parent handouts that come in both English and Spanish. And I love this as well. So it just gives the parents some questions that they can ask the kids about coding. And then there's always just a little background. There's always, and as Nikki just talked about, there's always an unplugged game that you can start with. And then there's the explore part. And usually there's a video that the kids watch. So these are the blocks the kids are going to learn. And the cool thing for teachers is that, as Nikki just showed you, if you click on any of those, it tells you how to do it. So again, you don't have to be a computer programmer to teach your kindergartners how to code. It's all right in here. It gives you examples and shows you how to do it. So these are the blocks the kids are going to learn during this lesson. And it gives you those examples and really shows you how to do it. And then if you scroll down, there you go. Every one of them has a video. In this particular video, for example, Peg and Cat get stuck in a tree. It ends with Cat stuck in the tree, and then the kids code him down. They rescue him. They figure out a way to do that. And so that tells you what the task is. It gives you a couple of examples of what that might look like. When you're coding, and even some of the blocks that you can use. So again, this is a great resource to use as well. And then there is always there's a challenge. There's usually a math and a literacy extension. And then the coding challenge is for that kid who, is done in 10 minutes and the rest of the class is not, and he's bored and needs something to do. Here's a couple of things that can help you, you can help them take it up to the next level. And then again, there's that English versus Spanish handout. So everything you need is right here. The lessons are all set up the same, and I love that. And then there's also a certificate when the kids finish. There's how-to cards. So this is the certificate that you can print off for your students. There's a social media badge. If you're a total nerd like I am, I put a badge in everything, like email signatures everywhere, because I'm a nerd. So there's a badge you can download and, put on wherever. And then there's how-to cards. Now, I'll tell you, I rarely see students use how-to cards because students typically just jump in and figure it out. But these are really great for teachers. And that's honestly where I see these being used the most, is that teachers print this off and sort of have it as their own little cheat sheet as they're teaching or working with kids, because teachers are not quite as brave always as students. Students will just jump in and do it and they'll figure it out, and teachers aren't always. So the how-to cards are not that your students can't use them, but I just find that teachers use those a lot more. So PBS Kids Scratch Junior is amazing. I will just give you one sort of pro tip, is that you will, if you just Google Scratch Junior, if you just go to the App Store and look for Scratch Junior, you will find an app called Scratch Junior. It has the same interface. Scratch Junior was originally designed by MIT, and then PBS said, hey, can we have a part of that? And so you'll notice that it looks very similar. The cool thing, and then it'll have that little cat guy on there. And that's fine. And if your kids can code in one, they can code in the other. But the cool thing about the PBS Kids version is that the characters are the PBS Kids characters. So your kids get to code the Wildcrats, they get to code Arthur, and they also have the PBS Kids background. And I'll tell you that that is, for some kids, a tipping point. And probably one of my favorite stories comes from a 5th grader who I was invited in to help do coding, and he thought he was too cool for little baby coding, is what he called it. And, you know, because PBS Kids is what he saw. And I, you know, said, well, I want you to at least give it a try. And the activity that we were doing that day was with Wildcrats, but I gave him some time to explore. And this boy is sitting there with his attitude, right? And one of the other kids next to him pulls it up, starts looking through the characters, and that little boy looks over and he says very loudly, goes, "Wait, you have Wildcrats in here?" And I said, "Yes, we do." And that was it. And he was hooked. He did not have attitude the rest of the time. We were not coding with Wildcrats in that specific activity, but I let him code with Wildcrats. And that was all it took for him. So for some kids, the buy-in is that they love to be able to code these characters and these shows and these backgrounds that they know. And they think it's pretty cool to be able to put Wildcrats in the, you know, Arthur classroom and things like that. So you can use either one. I just often get emails from teachers like, "Wait, I downloaded the app and there's no PBS Kids characters." And I always tell them you downloaded just the Scratch Junior one. So look for the PBS Kids Scratch Junior version, just because those characters are sort of what make it really fun for the kiddos.
Oops. Cool. All right. Yeah, I wanted to show one more thing. My favorite thing to do is in the Creature Powers lesson is the Scratch Junior Simon Says game. And this, I think, is another unplugged activity. The whole thing is we teach that nothing happens without the green flag. That's the first block. Everything has to start on the green flag. So to really reinforce that, you play Simon Says, where instead of saying Simon Says, you show the green flag. And so this is great kinesthetic activity. And it also helps introduce what these blocks might do and what the motion might be. So I have these printed and just in a 3-ring notebook, and I kind of just flip them up. And so on this one, they would do this because the green flag is there. This one, they wouldn't because there's no green flag. And you can kind of go through all of the different motions and play that game and it really helps them conceptualize. And when they're building their code and they're confused as to why it's not doing anything, when they press the green flag start button, you can remind them of this game. Well, remember, Simon Says, got to use the green flag. So I think this is another great activity that is built right in this curriculum.
Well, and with those cards, I'll just tell you, I taught this to a group of kindergarten teachers. I went in and taught them how to code and did a professional development with them. They decided, and it was over a summer, and they decided that they would spend the first half of the school year before Christmas using those as their directional prompts to their kids. So they would hold up the green flag with the arrow to go forward when they wanted the kid to walk down the hall. Or they would hold up there's some where there are, you know, that they get to turn left or right? So they would use those. That one's hopping. And so they would use these as directional arrows, and they used them for they kind of focused on a new one every week, and they used them for the entire time. And then when January came, and these kids, they pulled out the iPads, the kids were like, "Oh, we got this," because they already knew what all of those blocks did. And that was not my idea. That was this group of amazing kindergarten teachers that went, "Wait, let's start with this." But their transition to teaching the kids these 5-year-olds to use it on an iPad was so much smoother than others I've heard of, because the kids already knew. They knew what all the blocks did. They knew what the green flag meant. And it was just a really seamless transition. So there's a ton of, the very last lesson plan has storyboards and characters linked to it as well. So there just are, you know, so many ways that you can use this. in your classroom that doesn't even have to be getting the iPad or the tablet or whatever you have out and code it. This one has storyboard assets right there, and it is the backgrounds that are in the app and the characters that are in the app. And so you could print these off, the kids could storyboard. But again, this is something they can do without even doing the app, right? You could just print these off and let kids storyboard. As you keep scrolling, you'll start to notice that there's characters in there as well. So there they are. And so again, the kids can storyboard with it. Now, obviously, it's not every single character and every single background that's in the app, because that would take pages and pages. But there's a lot of really good characters here. So just think, outside the box, really, there's just a wealth of things that kids can do. Nikki mentioned the coding kids through mazes, and, there's little blocks that kids can cut out that are the coding blocks as well, that they could do a similar activity using the stuff from Scratch Junior. So there's just so many things that kids can do that don't have to be, sitting in front of the iPad, but also really good activities to help prepare them to then get into the coding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know that was there, the storyboards and the characters. So I learned something.
Yeah, because we don't usually teach the last lesson.
I go in and do the first lesson.
And then, the first one, maybe two, and then that's it. But
I know the first one really, really well.
Yep, me too. Yeah, but I love that, and I could definitely see that being a beneficial thing, from the beginning, using that with kids, letting them use that design sheet, plan it out, then let them storyboard it, which is a real life process, right? I mean, that is what they do when they design the shows. They physically draw it out, they storyboard it, they, all of those things. So anyway, I think it's just a really thorough curriculum, and really a great way to teach kids to code and to start beginning to learn those skills.
Yeah, one of the best for sure. So the next few slides, we didn't want to talk over, but these are just curation of the different programs and apps that you can be using, that as you want to use coding, you come into it with a grade level and a device that you have available to you. So you need to match those two things. And so I always say I can't recommend the best tool, because that really depends on what you have available to you, and then we can narrow it down from there. But on this slide, we've got things organized by grade level, and then just kind of talks about what you see in each of those. And this is all hyperlinked, so if you have the slide deck, you can get to all of those by clicking on the links. And then this is our 3 through 8 recommendations. You can see there's some overlap. There are quite a few platforms that are K-12. I think Codeorg is really for the starting and for the advanced work. And we see, Scratch Junior was developed for that pre-K to 2 audience, but gosh, Carrie and I have successfully used it with up to 5th grade because it's so creative and so open-ended. And then we've added these last 3 here. These are ones you do have to pay for, and they come with sort of that extra thing that you plug into a device, and the code makes that thing do something. So in the opposite, make code is like a little switch circuit board that lights up or makes sounds based on the code that's built on the computer. Lego robotics are where we're putting putting Legos together, and then we build the code to make this Lego thing move. And Sphero are balls that roll around and can go through water and go off jumps, and the kids use code to get the balls to move. So you can do code on a screen, or you can code things to move depending on where your students are. And in an ideal world, a school would have all of these kinds of things available, so kids had these opportunities available. But if you've got grant funds and parent group money to spend on STEM materials, these are great places to go, or great things to use. This is a list of iPad and tablet apps. So if that's what you have available, these are ones that we like. We probably could have spent a lot of time on Osmo during this presentation too. I think we all love Osmo for coding. One that you do have to purchase, and need multiple sets of them in a classroom, but they were really popular in my class. And then of course, those are the web-based. So if you're on a Chromebook or you're on desktop computers, these are some resources that you can use for those platforms. And then this is just some supplemental information, other links to dig into and explore and get a feel for what kinds of coding resources you have available to you. I think any advice to anyone just starting is to just do some yourself. You know, pick up a platform and start do what the kids would do and take yourself through a few levels, and you'll be surprised how engaging and somewhat addictive it is to build it and try it out. And then once you've figured it out, and try it with the kids and see what happens. So Tracy, Carrie, any final words or last motivational statements for our audience today?
No, I think we've said it, but you know, just again, to not feel. I like how Carrie said sometimes adults aren't quite as brave as kids. So for us as teachers to kind of put on our brave faces and know that we don't need to be computer programmers. All of these tools we've shared have so many supports to help you just jump in and again use your kids. We started with Codeorg. And they reached levels as kindergartners that I wasn't quite sure. So Lewis in my class was our expert, and so Lewis would help them and help me. So again, you know, utilizing your students, letting them take the lead, and just diving in and giving it a go, I think is the thing to do.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. We appreciate your time today. And reach out. That's our contact information if we can help you with anything. And happy coding.